so pleased to be here. I'm so pleased to call these people my friends, my teachers, the leaders I have learned from. In these times for which I have no adequate adjectives, I draw hope from them and from you. Your work to encourage creativity, a new level of honesty and justice and awareness is for me a source of hope. I feel so privileged to be part of the Guild's service to this community and to our larger communities. And for all this, I say a deep thank you to you and the Guild. I am neither an artist nor an educator in the former sense. I don't think of my work as leadership. I think of it as my self-interest, to work with people like you who make our communities more humane, more just, more vital, and more beautiful. This is wonderful but often difficult work, and so I have been dedicated to helping people take time to examine the way they work so that they are better able to use themselves well for what they believe in, and to have a career that is effective and satisfying and sustainable over the long arc required. To actually get an award for this is exceptional. The work itself and the friendships and learning that have been part of it have been my reward for years. And there isn't much I can do in 10 minutes that will add to your experience. But I'll tell you a story from my own history. I'm from Minnesota, where we wait for a really long time for spring to occur. And when it comes, we greet it with unabashed enthusiasm. A few years ago, at an early spring parade, a new organic juice bar called the Crazy Carrot used the occasion for a promotion and passed out packs of carrot seeds to those of us sitting along the route. I have a small garden for edibles, mainly tomatoes and basil, and I'm generally a frugal person, so I took the seeds home, dug a row, and planted them that very afternoon. They soon sprouted, every one bright and green and full of promise. I loved them and nurtured them, and they grew steadily. Several weeks later, a colleague of mine was over at my home. She is a master gardener, and a walk through my yard was often part of a visit. She saw the crowded carrot sprouts and told me I needed to thin them out. There were too many carrots in the row. Unless I thinned them, she warned, none would get an adequate nourishment and grow to maturity. A few days later, I returned to the patch and confronted my dilemma: how to choose which ones to pluck. All were green, all looked healthy, all had the potential to be a delicious, nutritious vegetable. I felt blessed by all the life, by all the opportunity. I deferred plucking, then and again and again. Weeks later, it was harvest time, and I went out to pull up my carrots. They were tangled, gnarled, intertwined, and stubby, uncleanable, unpeelable. Not one made it into a soup, much less a salad. Not one had been given the space, the attention, the nourishment it needed to achieve its potential because I had not done the thinning. I had not made the required choices. This is not a difficult lesson to understand, but it is an important one, and it is difficult to apply. I share this tale because I believe that for many of us, the failure to make important choices causes us, as Thomas Merton once put it, to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit oneself to too many projects, to want to help everyone and everything, and as a result to succumb to the violence of the busyness of modern life. We are required every day to make choices, and it will not generally be a choice between good and evil. That's pretty good, and most of us have mastered that. More likely it will be between good and also good, sometimes between what you want for yourself and what others want from you. Wise and deliberate choice making is important to leading a fulfilling life, to being a leader of your own life, not just being dragged along, imitating someone else's. It is so important for all of us to think more deeply and get clarity about the real purpose of our work and the core values we want to guide us in that work. And so I think about the practicality of 4 things. One is to recognize the need to make choices. If you do not intentionally make them for yourselves, others will make them for you. And if you do not make those choices, none of those carrots, those things that you hold deeply, will be able to be nurtured and grow to their full potential. Clarify your values and your principles and use them to make choices and to see what they require of you. And I think seeking fulfillment through thoughtful engagement with a purpose, with ideas, with beauty, with the natural world, and with other human beings. And finally, to remember that you can learn from everyone and everything and let yourself be changed by what you learn. Difficulty and defeat, of which I have a fair amount of experience, can be life-giving forces if we pay attention to them and let them teach us how to move forward. I was much smarter in my 20s than I am now. I knew more and I was sure of what a good life requires. Now, decades later, I'm less sure about a lot, but age does have its privileges, so I just want to pass on a few things that I think I wished I had learned earlier in my life, as I think they have contributed greatly to my growth and happiness. First, slow down. The young people today said, be patient and take your time. We could have learned that from them, so I'll repeat it. So in my purse usually and in my pocket, I keep one of these old-fashioned puzzles. It has 15 numbers, and the idea is when your train is late or your plane is late, you can try and put those in order. I carry it around because there's a metaphor here that's really important to me. There's a right way to solve the puzzle, to get the numbers in order. Success requires that you know what you're trying to achieve and that you move things around in order to achieve it. But mostly I carry this because the key to success is an empty space. If there were no empty space in this puzzle, if there were 16 tiles rather than 15, it would be impossible to make the change that was required. Without it, nothing can move. The creation of the empty space is an act of faith. It must come first before the puzzle can be solved. This then is a plea to you to make some empty space, to reflect upon the choices facing you. And once you have made those choices, live them fully and let other things go. Nurture the carrots you choose. Second, take time to be alone. Finding solitude and silence, I think, is a requirement for growth as a person and as a leader. Make that empty space for yourself. No one else will ever do it for you. There's a concept in jiu-jitsu called strategic withdrawal. It entails stepping away from a situation so that you can get a fresh perspective and so that the situation itself can be changed by your absence. Sometimes we need to take a step back so that we can take a smarter step forward. We need to get a fresh perspective and to give ourselves a chance to hear our own voice. We need to spend time alone and make space to figure out who we really are and what really matters to us, and also to see how we can effectively act on behalf of what we believe. We need to select and nurture some of those carrots so their roots grow deep and strong. And speaking of carrots, here's the third thing. Take time to engage meaningfully with others. Most of the work that we need to do to make this world what we want it to be cannot be done alone. So this is a both and requirement, solitude and engagement. I find the metaphor of a kid's toy, the Weeble, important. Weebles wobble, but they never fall down. They don't fall down because they are anchored by a weight, which I think your values and principles can be if they are well defined and practiced with regularity. Weebles are pulled and pushed, and that's what's going to happen to all of us as we try and engage in difficult, challenging situations in a community that often doesn't understand or appreciate the efforts that we're making. Wobbling is fine. Falling over and staying down is not. If you can, act like a Weeble and use your values and your principles, you will be able to right yourself. Find your values, figure out what they require of you, and then do those things with conviction. And as Warren Bennis said so well, becoming a leader is synonymous with becoming yourself. It is exactly that simple and that difficult. I love that the Guild gives 2 awards at the same time, one for leadership and one for service. Those 2 things are intertwined. Leadership worth nurturing must be of service to others, and those who work to develop others are the true leaders. And James is such a wonderful example of that, for which I'm terribly grateful. Every one of you is capable of providing leadership for something you believe in, but it requires commitment. Continue to find out how to use your talents, your ideas, your history, your whole and wonderful self, both to lead and to serve. That's your challenge. I wish you well. I wish all of us well. And I thank you all again for the many gifts I have been given through my work with the Guild.